Hey guys, Jake again. I'm coming back today with a little look at the MVP plastic lineup. Uh, MVP is not quite as well known as, say, Discraft or Innova as far as the plastic types go. So that's one of the first things that seems to confuse people when you're talking to them about your discs is, what types of plastic you have and what they're comparable to in other more, I guess, hate to say more popular brands, but we know, you got to find Innova at Walmart, right? People know what that is. So, yeah, we're gonna first. I want to kind of talk about the MVP brands to in general, and then we'll break down the individual plastic types, uh, sort of associated with all of them. So the first thing we got to talk about is MVP as sort of an umbrella company has three brands. The first being MVP proper. The second is Axiom, sort of the rebellious sibling, and then Streamline, which is sort of the newest of the three. So all three of those discs are all made by MVP and are sort of part of the same family, though they are distinct lines in a very specific way. So first off, MVP discs are the ones that have these black rims. The black rim contains the extra weighting material, which makes MVP kind of unique in that they have what they call their gyro technology, where they add more weight to the outside of the disc, which then, due to physics, is going to cause it to fly differently. Theoretically, then, a single mold disc, which is the weight is evenly distributed throughout the entire disc. The more you can push the weight to the outside, theoretically, the better the gyroscopic effect. There's a whole lot of debate on whether that's not necessarily that's true. I think everybody's aware that it's true by physics, but as far as whether an individual throwing a disc is going to be able to see that difference, is it a large enough difference? Is the extra force required to get the disc spinning as fast as a single mold going to kind of outweigh the benefits of having the heavier overmold? I don't know. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can find on the internet about people arguing one way or the other. So I'm not going to really get into that. I don't really care about that. Whether they fly differently or better is, I can't say that I have any big opinion one way or the other. I just know that I love MVP discs and they fly the way I want. Whether that's because of gyro or not is completely irrelevant. So anyway, MVP discs, the black rim, weighted in this material, which is different than the material of the flight plate. The plastics are different. And this black rim, I would say, is maybe a hair less durable than the normal premium blend plastics that you'd find in the flight plate. In my experience, they tend to cut up more. I don't know. It's hard to describe. They don't seem to take blunt force as badly as other plastics, but they do tend to cut up more. So if you hit like a metal sign, they tend to, in my opinion, cut easier than other plastics. But more often you're hitting, the blunt force is hitting a tree, not a sharp object. So I think the rims actually hold up really well. And either way, they're comparable to most premium plastics. I don't think there's any major issue with it. But okay, MVP, black rim, sort of the base original lineup of MVP discs. The next more recent brand that came out is Axiom. Axiom are the discs that have the colored rims. While the MVP discs have sort of a science-y theme to them, you have Volt and Tesla and Atom and Photon, things like that. The Axiom lineup are kind of named more, I want to say, like emotion, maybe, envy, thrill, wrath, things like that. So there's a slight difference in the naming, but visually it's because of the colored rims. Now, I wasn't able to really determine from my research whether this rim is anything other than just standard Neutron plastic. I assume it's some special blend of Neutron that has more weighting material so that it still has the gyroscopic effect. But when you do look on the Axiom website, it at least with the Proton plastic, they mention that it's a neutron rim. So this may just be regular neutron, which in that case I would assume that there is no special gyro effect with these Axiom discs. But if there is extra weighting material, which there could be, then you would have the same effect, or theoretically the same effect as the standard MVP discs. Either way, these discs look very nice, get a lot of cool color combinations, and they fly, different than most of the MVP equivalents. I mean, they both, MVP and Axiom, both have like a full lineup of discs, but they sort of slot in between each other. There's not too much direct overlap. Most people throw one or the other, and for each particular sort of, style of disc, and a lot of people mix the two back and forth, whether they like one or the other. I actually tend to have mostly MVP, but the ones I have of Axiom I absolutely love, like the Envy, the Pyro, and the Crave, the Proxy, things like that. Anyway, so that's Axiom. Axiom are the colored rims, over molded discs. That was the second brand. The last and most recent brand of MVP's lineup is Streamline. Streamline is their non-overmolded, so the single mold disc, no special rim. This is a pretty small lineup still. I think there's like 7 or 8. I'm not entirely sure. Not a whole lot of discs. They're still sort of filling that lineup out, but the ones that they have been very popular. And all 3 brands have the same sort of base plastics that they use. There's some special stuff. Axiom's got one special blend that the others don't have, and then obviously when you're talking about Streamline, they don't have the option of different colored rims, so they don't have a special blend for their rim or anything. So, but they do come in the same sorts of plastics. So let's kind of look at what those plastics happen to be. So the first plastic that I want to talk about is MVP's baseline plastic. The baseline being the cheapest, sort of less durable option. A lot of times it's for the people that are just getting into the sport. They tend to be less overstable. They're much cheaper, so the cost of getting into the game is not quite so high. But also for more experienced players, they're really nice because they wear in really quickly. So you can get them to fly more understable. They have a fantastic grip in comparison to the premium plastics. But yeah, they do lack durability, so you could end up going through quite a few of them if you make them your primary plastic of choice. So the baseline Electron is what they call their baseline, is opaque, single color, has very good grip in the rain and the snow and things like that. When they're cold, they aren't as likely to crack. They've sort of a softer plastic, but they do beat up pretty badly. You hit one tree really hard, and this thing is going to have a pretty nice nub on the one side, and it's going to start flying a lot more understable. But sometimes that's what you want, and that's specifically what I use the Electron plastic for in my throwers, is I want them to get beat up and I want them to be understable to complement my more stable premium plastics. So the feel of the Electron plastic to me is most similar to like Prodigy 200 plastic. The durability is similar to like Innova DX or like Pro D for Discraft. I'm not as familiar with a lot of the other lines, so I'm not going to talk to their baseline plastics, but they're all fairly easy to beat up. But the feel is definitely closer to like the Prodigy 200. I feel like DX is a lot slicker than this, and then Pro D kind of has a weird chalkiness to it that's not quite the same. Almost more brittle. They're a little bit stiffer, I feel like. It's been a long time since I messed with Pro D, to be honest, but from what my memory is telling me, it's not quite the same. These have the best feel, I think, of baseline plastic of the discs that I've thrown. So, yeah, that's sort of the baseline Electron. And here we have an MVP one with the black rim. The black rim on here, I don't know if it's the same as it is. I think it's a little bit softer than what you find on the premium MVP discs. I don't know. It's hard to tell. It feels like it chunks up a little bit easier than the drivers do that I have that are in premium. But yeah, either way, it's still the weighted material, and it has that same gyro effect or whatever. And then likewise, we have an Axiom in Electron. This guy, looks the same, opaque. It's got the same feel on the flight plate. The difference being that the rim has a different color. This one's kind of a weird purple. It's kind of beat up, so it's almost looking brown now. And one other thing I should note about this Electron plastic is that they come in a few different, I guess you call them flexibilities, stiffness. Yeah, we'll go with that. So like the mid-range only comes in the one, and it's like a stiff sort of plastic. But the putters, they come in they have soft, medium, and firm. And this is a soft. It's pretty flexible. And they beat up really fast and can become really understable. So I really like that. But yeah, so you kind of have your choice of stiffness at least for the putters in the Electron. And then last, I've got another Electron. This one is a Streamline pilot. So again, it's flat, single color, beats up pretty hard. This is also in soft. So it's very flexible. But yeah, that's sort of their baseline plastic. Really, really nice discs still. They really feel good, and I do bag Electron plastic even though it does beat up. So that's standard Electron. Now, there's another Electron that they offer called Cosmic Electron, and Cosmic in the MVP world essentially means multicolored. So you think of the swirly discs in other brands, that's the sort of equivalent in MVP. If it says Cosmic, it's some sort of multicolored. You always hear swirl, but when it comes to MVP, it's never really swirl so much as it is like a burst pattern. So it always kind of drives me nuts when we say swirly, because it's never swirling, or very rarely is it swirling. It's mostly just like a radial burst thing of colors. I don't know. Anyway, so here's an example of an Axiom Cosmic Electron, where it's got multicolored burst of light blue and dark blue. Some of them are more contrasting than this. This one's maybe not quite as obviously multicolored, but here's a better example in the Streamline pilot in Cosmic Electron. So it's that same grippy feeling Electron. Everything about it's the same. It's just the colors. You get multiple colors, and as you can see, it's like pi segments of color change that you hear people talking about the swirls. That's what they're talking about, the multicolor. Otherwise, identical to Electron in every way that I've seen it. This, I swear it was supposed to be soft. It doesn't say soft, it just says Cosmic Electron, which would make me think medium, but it's definitely not as soft as the other one. So, verdict's out on whether Cosmic Electron soft is really soft or not. So maybe someone else out there has experience with the Cosmic Electron soft and non-soft varieties and can let us know, are they actually soft or not. But I think that's pretty much all there is to say about the Electron. And it is really the only variation of baseline, just the Electron and Cosmic Electron. It's the only sort of baseline plastic that MVP really has. Some of the other brands have like a next step up of baseline, like I think of X-Line for Discraft, or like, was it Pro in Innova? Like a KC Pro rock I think I had. It's a little bit stiffer and more durable, I think, than their original, DX or Pro D plastics. And there's really not an equivalent in MVP, which is fine for me. I don't really see a need for a second, like a next tier of sort of baseline quality plastic, because I feel like the grip and the durability is exactly what I'm looking for with their baseline. So yeah, let's move on to our next category, which will be Neutron. All right, so let's talk about Neutron plastic. Neutron is MVP's sort of equivalent to ESP or Star or like gold line plastic. Essentially, it's the opaque sort of premium blend, you know, single color, just sort of what you expect from a classic premium disc. It's more durable, it's bright and easy to see, but you're not going to be able to see through it really. And they come in, you know, the usual bright, crazy, cool colors you'd expect. Nothing too interesting there. The durability is on par with everything else that I've ever thrown. They do feel like they beat in about the same for me, maybe a little slower than other plastics, and I don't know if that's because of the different material on the rim or what. But in general, just a pretty standard. This is an MVP one, obviously, with the black rim. I also have a Streamline. This is a trace, which also is in the same premium Neutron plastic. Nothing too terribly exciting about it. Actually, never mind. This is actually a different. This is not. We'll talk about that kind later. But yeah, it's the same. Let's see if I have a different one. There we go. Here's another one in Neutron. Very sort of, at this point in time, when you see all the discs that come out, they look so bland. But these used to be super beautiful, crazy, bright colors. Sort of used to be the standard, but now we're so used to all the swirls and stuff that they're just kind of meh. But they are really nice. I didn't expect it, but in the wintertime, I actually really like the Neutron plastic. In the summer, I'm not a huge fan. Like, it's fine. If it's the only plastic I can get, I'll use it. But it's really good for the cold. Let's see. And then to go along with, I should also point out, if you've got putters, they do offer the same flexibility, the stiffness for putters in Neutron, where you can get soft Neutron putters. So you can get like a soft Neutron NV. I don't have any of those discs, but it'd be the same thing that we saw with the Electron, where they're just more flexible when you bend them. All right, and along with the standard Neutron, there's also Cosmic Neutron, which is, again, cosmic meaning they're multicolor, kind of swirly plastics. So here's an example of a lot of different colors in this Streamline version. This one is actually a little bit more swirly than some of them. I feel like they've gone from a very rigid line of, you know, pie slices in some of the earlier cosmic stuff to now it's a little bit more blurred, so it's still hard to call it a swirl, but you know, at least a more erratic burst. Likewise, here's an Axiom Cosmic Neutron. This one is a little harder to see because it's just different colors of green, but again, feels exactly like regular Neutron, just looks a little bit different. And here's another, just an example of a more swirly. This was is another Pilot, and this one is Cosmic Neutron as well, and it's sort of a pink and blue. It's harder to see the swirls in this one, but yeah, just sort of a very good, durable, premium plastic. If you like them pretty, get the Cosmic Neutron. If you want them more, you know, single color, or in the case of Axiom, two-tone with the rim and the flight plate, yeah, Neutron is a solid choice. They do tend to fly, I think, the most, like the numbers. Some of the, and I don't know if the Cosmic Neutron flies a little bit more overstable because it's Cosmic Neutron. I doubt it. I think it's more because the newer ones are coming from being produced in-house, and a lot of those molds are coming out more overstable than they have in the past, just because of the way the things have changed with them manufacturing them at a different place, or whatever, if they're using different machines or whatever it is. But the Cosmic Neutron discs that I have tend to be a little more overstable for whatever reason. But I would imagine in the future they should probably feel about the same as you get newer discs of either type. And that's Neutron. All right, so the last of the sort of common plastics that you find in most brands is their sort of clear disc. So Innova has Champion, Discraft has Z-Line, Lat64 has like Opto, MVP has Proton plastic. So Proton plastic is that sort of clear flight plate, and then with either the colored rim or the black rim if it's MVP, or no rim if it's Streamline. So again, this is an example of a nice Axiom one. Very similar to all the other clear sort of translucent plastic types that I've thrown. I don't think it's any better or worse or different. Again, these are also pretty good in the wintertime as far as grip goes. I'm not as big a fan during the summer, but really like them in the wintertime. I don't think you're going to find any real surprises with this stuff. It's going to fly very similar to the Neutron plastic. Maybe a hair more overstable depending on which mold and which run probably. Here's another Axiom purple with a white rim. I don't throw a lot of Protons, so I don't have a ton of examples. And then here is a Pilot from Streamline. And yeah, Proton is pretty, I don't know, it's pretty standard stuff, pretty, super durable. Actually, I think this is a bit more durable than the Neutron. But otherwise flies, fairly standard premium plastic flights. Probably a little more overstable in the numbers. Proton doesn't have a cosmic sort of alternate officially, but you will find in the lab seconds. Actually, this particular disc, and I have an ion actually that were both lab seconds, where they were experimenting with cosmic Proton, but it's really hard to tell when you use Proton that the colors are different. So I remember seeing it in a lab update or something that they were working on messing around with it. I don't know if it'll ever happen if the plastic just doesn't work that way. But yeah, officially there is no cosmic Proton that I'm aware of. They do have, though, some special blends, like this particular one. Well, technically this is lab second, but I also have another disc that is a special edition Mayhem that has a sparkly Proton. So there's little sparkly glitter pieces in here that kind of give it a unique look, which I think a lot of manufacturers have done that. So yeah, you can get a sparkle Proton if you want. Yeah, there's really not much else to say about it. It tends to be my least favorite of the plastics, not because it's bad, just because I prefer the other ones more. But this specific disc here, this Pilot, is one of my favorites. So yeah, so every once in a while you just find one that you really like and kind of stick with it. But yeah, that's all I got to say about Proton. All right, next let's talk about Eclipse. Eclipse plastic is MVP's glow line plastic. And in my experience, their glow plastic has, in the 1.0 glow plastic, they actually have two different types of glow plastic. But the original glow 1.0 plastic is pretty comparable with most other brands. It glows all right. It didn't glow enough to impress me more than anybody else, but it also wasn't garbage, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. I was never big into glow just because it was sort of gimmicky in my opinion, but a lot of people really like it. They do fly a little bit different. They tend to fly a little bit more overstable than their like Proton and Neutron, well, or in the case of other manufacturers, whatever their premium blends are. The glow stuff always tends to be a little bit more overstable from what I've heard. But anyway, we'll start with the glow 1.0. The Eclipse plastic, in this case, this is an Axiom disc. It's just the flight plate that glows. I do believe early on they had the rims glowing instead of the flight plate, but switched it to be the flight plate instead of the rim. I don't know. I didn't throw it back then to know, and I haven't thrown enough of it recently to really be an expert on the Eclipse plastic. But it does feel nice. It's, it feels very much like Proton. It looks obviously a little bit more opaque. You can see the little dots of the glow material in there. And I would agree that it flies a little more overstable than other discs of the same mold, different plastic type, I guess. Nothing too exciting. Glows a decent amount. Yeah, that's really all I've got to say about the 1.0. More importantly, though, is recently MVP has released their Eclipse 2.0, their second generation glow plastic, and that stuff is amazing. It is significantly brighter than all the other glow on the market. The only person that comes close is Clastoplast. They have a very nice glow as well. But the stuff glows forever. And they've just recently released their first official disc in the Eclipse 2.0, and that is the Reactor. It is a little bit more opaque in my opinion, a little more of a yellow tinge to it. It feels a lot nicer though, I think. It feels a little bit gummier than the 1.0. It definitely glows better, so if you're actually playing glow disc, that's the way to go. And it is a bit more overstable in my opinion. Not like super noticeably, but it's, I don't know, enough to be able to say it, I guess. So the Reactor is currently the only official disc released, but you can also find the Trace, which I have one of these guys from my Gyropalooza pack. There's also a Pilot and a Tesla that were done as prototypes, so they do exist, but you're going to be paying a pretty penny to get your hands on one. They're hard to find. I absolutely love my Trace. This thing flies. It flies more like a Photon than a Trace in my opinion. It is a bit more overstable, but holy cow, does this thing glow. And it glides forever. So yeah, the Eclipse 1.0, 2.0 plastics are just their glow line. They feel pretty similar to like Proton, except the 2.0 I think has a little bit more gumminess to it, and they do fly a little bit more overstable. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about the Eclipse plastic. All right, let's take a look next at Prism. So Prism plastic is unique to the Axiom line. And the reason that is the Prism part of Prism plastic is 100% about the overmold rim. So normally for MVP, you've got the black rim made of the dense weighted material. For Axiom, it's the Neutron, or Neutron-like at least, rim, the solid colored whatever premium plastic rim. Prism is, instead of Neutron, it is a Proton, the translucent colored rim, and it's a very unique look to it. A lot of times it's the sparkliness in the rim that they add. I don't know if that's all of them or just some of them. But when they say Prism, it's talking about the outer rim being made of Proton. The inner part of the flight plate can be made of a few things. For instance, this one is a Proton, so it's a Prism Proton because of Prism, Proton outside and Proton on the inside. But for instance, this is a Prism Plasma, where it's the sparkly Proton rim with a plasma plate. And then I also have this Lab Second, which looks to be plasma rim and plasma plate. So I don't know if that was a blend they were messing around with. It doesn't look exactly like Proton though. So maybe we'll see in the future if there'll be another name for those that have plasma rims, if that becomes a thing. But essentially, it's all about the rim being made of a Proton plastic instead of the normal Neutron for Axiom. So they look really nice. They, just from what I read, they don't have any special gyro effect because it is truly Proton in the rim and not like a weighted material. But that doesn't change the fact that they fly beautifully. I do love the Pyro, and I think there's only a couple of discs that have been run in the Prism. The only one I have is the Pyro. I feel like there was an Insanity run of them. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's sort of the very unique Prism plastic that is only available as an Axiom. All right, next let's move on to one of probably my favorite plastics, and that is plasma. Plasma, I have not found a similar disc in another brand. I've heard some people say it's similar to G-Star. I guess any G-Star I've felt didn't seem the same. Maybe they're talking about the way it flies. I don't know. I feel like it flies very similar to the Proton and the Neutron, you know, the translucent and the opaque premium plastics. The difference, I think, is that, well, I know, I guess for sure, is that the coloring of it is sort of a metallic. They have a few different kinds, and I'll show you a few examples, but it's sort of a metallic shine color, and it's got a little bit more grippiness than the other two premium blends of Neutron and Proton. So this one is actually the most flat, sort of, I don't know what you'd call it, bland plasma. It's definitely shinier. It's almost like there's a veneer over the color. So it's like a clear coat kind of thing going on that gives it sort of a metallic shine underneath it. But this one is pretty bland, other than being a cool color of, you know, sort of nice pink. But that's sort of the baseline plasma that I've found. But more importantly is when you get in to the variants. Like for instance, here we have a sparkle plasma. So there's all these tiny little sparkles in here that make it just shimmer and shine and looks like a very cool, like gold, like real gold underneath, with like that clear coat look over the top kind of thing going on. It's very neat. So that's the sort of the sparkle plasma. This guy is what I would call cosmic plasma. I don't think it's officially a designation. I don't think anybody has a name for these other than plasma, but it's, as you can see, it's obviously multicolored, sort of their cosmic swirl pattern, but within plasma, so it has that sort of shimmery metallic look underneath, which is very cool. And then another really cool one, which I don't know what you would call this. I call it quilt top maple because it reminds me of the guitar finish, the quilt top maple guitar finish, where it's got the weird sort of, I don't know what you'd call it. It's like paint that sort of like ran over itself. I don't know, hard to describe, but like these little folds of the metallic paint create a neat pattern, and it's very shiny and shimmery. And this one's actually a multicolored cosmic sort of look too. But yeah, it's very neat. And again, it just looks like there's like a clear coat over the top of a really cool pattern, kind of like when you see those like tables made with the like epoxy resin, whatever the heck it is, with like, you know, bottle caps underneath it or something, right? That's sort of what it reminds me of. It looks textured and really neat, and then there's just like a nice smooth, clean finish over the top, so that it's very consistent feeling. But in the summer, this plasma stuff is super grippy. I love it. It's by far my favorite summer plastic. And I have it in most of my discs. If I can get it in plasma, that's what I've been going for. I did find in the wintertime, this stuff tends to get a little bit stiffer and slipperier and is not my top choice. Unfortunate, because I really hoped it would be. But yeah, that's plasma. There's also one more. I'll post a video over the top of this showing it, but there's a color shift plasma as well, where as you shift the disc in the light, it goes from one color to another. That's really cool. But yeah, so I found quite a few different kinds of plasma. But all of them sort of have that metallic look underneath, sometimes with cool textures or color swirls or whatever. But yeah, that's plasma. Alright guys, last plastic I have for you today is the fission plastic. So fission is MVP's foray into the microbubble technology. If you're familiar with Innova's Blizzard plastic or the Trilogy line, they have their air plastic. Essentially they've injected air bubbles into the plastic to make the plastic lighter. The result being that with those discs, the disc becomes significantly lighter, like discs in the 130s, 140s for weight, something like that, and they get significantly less stable as you'd expect being lighter discs. So in my opinion, they fly nothing like the discs that I want them to be. So I was never a real big fan. I mean, they're great because they can float, and they're great for people that don't have the strongest arm if they do want to throw a specific mold. It can give them a chance to throw the same mold, though I don't think they're going to get the same result that they'd expect. You know, if you're throwing a 140 katana, it's going to fly very different than a 175 katana. But to each his own. When it comes to MVP, however, their discs work a little differently because the microbubble technology only affects the flight plate of the disc. So with their fission, they essentially inject the bubbles into the flight plate only, and it allows them to put even more weighting material towards the outside in the rim, resulting in an even greater enhancement of their gyro technology, essentially. So if you found their gyro stuff to be noticeable in their regular discs, the fission disc will be just that much more intense. In my personal experience, the thing I notice is that this disc in a 146 flies still the same sort of line I would expect from like a 166 gram disc, but it just seems to go further. So I don't know whether it's the microbubbles or the gyro or whatever it is, but this does not seem like a super flippy disc. It seems to fly the way I would expect a max weight one to fly. The difference is just that it just seems to glide so much further. So whether you buy into that or not, whether it's in my head, I guess, who knows. But I love these discs. Just the way they fly is amazing. And so when it comes to fission, there's I categorize them into two groups, kind of old fission and new fission. The blend sort of changed over time. So the earlier discs, this is an Elaine King 5-time world champ. This is in the original, or as original as I have, fission plastic, which is super, super gummy. This stuff is so flexible, and it feels so good. It's insane. I've never felt a plastic this gummy. It's borderline blowfly gummy. Weird. But the Elaine King 6X is a lot stiffer. The newer fission feels a lot closer to Neutron. It's still a little bit gummier, I would say, or flexible, I guess. But it's nowhere near the difference of this older fission. In either case, you can tell it's fission by, if you look real close at the flight plate, there's these striations along the plastic because of the stretching of the bubble or whatever is going on when it's being formed. It creates this sort of pattern on the flight plate. So that's one way you can tell if you have like a lab second and you're not sure. I know there was a lot of Teslas, fission Teslas that went out in the Gyropalooza boxes and even possibly in the mystery boxes. So yeah, you can tell if you have fission just by looking for that, if it's not obvious from the weight, because you can get fission discs in, like I have a 170 something fission Tesla, and it's beefy. But yeah, usually when I get fission, I'm trying to go for the lighter ones, like the 146 Photon versus my usuals, being a lot heavier than that, closer to 170. So at any rate, that's fission. Highly recommend checking it out if you've never thrown one, just because it's a very different feel compared to like the Blizzard stuff, which I don't care for. Yeah, so that's Fission. So I think that's pretty much all I have to say about the MVP plastics. I know it can be a rough translation in the mind. I don't know if it's because the names Proton, Neutron, Electron, all that stuff sounds similar and sciencey that it's hard to differentiate them until you've spent some time with it, or what. But I was the same way when I first got into MVP. I could never remember which one was which, and I know a lot of people struggle with that. But this should hopefully give you a little bit of a better understanding of what they are and what they mean. It breaks down to Neutron being the opaque stuff, Proton being the clear stuff, and Electron being the baseline stuff. Everything else is sort of a blend of one of those things, it feels like. You could maybe put plasma in its own sort of category, right? Because it just looks different, but in the end, it's almost like a neutron-proton blend as far as the look goes. And, honestly, all their premium discs seem to fly pretty similar. I would not say there's a massive difference in stability between any of the premium ones. And then, the cosmic stuff is just changing the colors and stuff. And again, it doesn't seem to have a massive impact. The baseline stuff is going to fly understable like most baseline plastics do. So, yeah, hopefully that helps you out. If you guys have any other really cool blends to talk about, I know there's some really interesting blends that come out in the mystery boxes. Be sure to drop a comment to talk about that. If you do end up going and looking for discs now on either the MVP, Axiom, or Streamline websites, you'll notice when you look at the name of the disc, it'll list which plastics are available with little icons. I'll throw that up here so you can kind of see what that looks like. But that's something you can kind of look out for. You can see which discs, usually the more popular discs, will be offered in more different kinds of plastic, like the NV, for instance, is in basically every plastic. Yeah, if you have any other comments, drop them below. And if not, I will have some more content coming in the near future. Yeah, and we'll just catch you guys in the next one.